Good afternoon. I figured it could be interesting to some of you if I came on and made a fairly short video just about eating meat and eating fat. I guess some people call it the carnivore diet, some people call it the all meat diet, which is a little bit different, but in the absence of all of those labels, I would like to tell you all just a brief bit about my choice in diet and kind of the intention with the farm here. For those of you who are interested in maybe trying something like this yourself, or just interested in learning more about what I do, and also to just address some concerns that people have had and some questions that I've received that have kind of not necessarily caught me off guard, but have piqued my interest in responding on a more public level to other people who maybe have the same kind of questions and haven't reached out and aren't comfortable with asking those questions themselves. I did notice that whenever I make a post on Instagram about meat or eating meat or even making bone broth, that I lose a handful of followers. And I'm really okay with that, because I feel like when we follow someone on social media and that person doesn't share the same viewpoints, perhaps it's not the page that we want to follow, or it's not the information that we want to see in our feed. So I always pay attention when I lose followers, but I'm ultimately just fine with that, because if you strongly disagree with the way that I live or the way that we run our farm, then probably it's not the best page for you to follow. So there's that as well. But so let's see. The reason, so to go back, way back in the way day, I started practicing yoga when I was about 13. And I was very strict. I was following kind of this Shivananda protocol for yoga students. And there wasn't a lot of information about yoga out then. It was like the late 90s. Or I guess maybe that's not late 90s, like early to mid 90s. And there just wasn't a lot of yoga. Yoga hadn't become this trendy, popular thing here in the States at that time. So I didn't have any public yoga classes I could go to or any yoga teacher I could talk to. I just had this Shivananda book. And if you've studied any yoga with me, you know that I'm very, I guess I'm attached to that Shivananda book because it's just so good. It's such a good book, and it's got such good instructions, and it's easy to kind of follow the way that they guide you into posture. So I'm a big fan of the Shivananda school of yoga. But in that book, it talked about how yogis need to be vegetarians. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a vegetarian because I'm a yogi. And so I was a vegetarian for about 13 or 14 years while practicing and studying yoga. And I eventually went on to begin teaching yoga. And the concept with the yoga that I was looking at was getting our energy directly from the sun. And so in order to kind of skip the middleman of eating meat, in order to get closer to the sun, I would like to eat fruits and vegetables that had a lot of prana in them, so that we're like really taking the energy from the sun. And then I would eat that, because we can't eat the sun, and we don't photosynthesize. So if I were to eat those fruits or vegetables, then I could take in that prana, and that felt to me like a good way to do that. But I did find that while I was a vegetarian, I didn't feel very vital. And there's a lot of different factors that played into that with my own personal experience of vegetarianism. So, and then I had a series of children back to back, pretty much. I have 3 children very close together, and I realized that I would start craving meat while I was pregnant and while I was breastfeeding. And so I just kind of paid attention to that, because yoga is this practice of awareness, and I haven't always been 100% in my practice, but I do try to pay attention. And I think that's one thing that yoga teaches us, is to pay attention. So I paid attention to those cravings, and I was off and on, eating chicken, eating meat, eating goat and oxtail and things like this, kind of off and on, and then I think I felt guilty, like, oh, a good yogi wouldn't do this. And so I would tend to go back to being vegetarian. So let's see, maybe about 2 years ago, I started to look into, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. It's hard for me to remember time in years like that, but I think it's about 3 or 4 years where I started to look into the GAPS diet. Dr. Natasha McBride Campbell, or Campbell McBride is her last name. She has this book called GAPS, and it's the gut and psychology syndrome diet that helps to treat like mental fog and even things as persistent as like ADHD and autism. And so I started looking at her book a lot at the recommendation of a friend, and I found that when I was doing the GAPS diet and healing, it's all about healing the gut. And so I was drinking a lot of broths and eating a lot of like beef and pork mixed together and excluding a lot of things from my diet, but also consuming dairy. I started to notice that my skin was getting brighter and I was losing excess weight. I haven't really struggled with obesity, but my weight does fluctuate depending on my diet, because when I'm eating better, I'm losing weight, basically. The weight that I was carrying that I didn't really need. So I don't choose a specific diet specifically for weight loss, because I don't think that's necessarily a very healthy outlook for myself. And all of this is my personal perspective and experience. And so when I come up against kind of like a wall when I talk to people about this, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. It's just how I live based on the ways that I've paid attention to past patterns and habits and things like that for myself. So let's see, the GAPS diet was wonderful, but I would find that I would still have these like itchy, almost like eczema or psoriasis type of rashes that would come up on my skin. So I decided about maybe a year or two ago to try the all meat diet, which is just that. It's just basically meat. So I was eating lots of ground beef, salt, and sparkling water. And I tell you what, it was hard at first, for the first maybe 2 weeks or so, but I had such a persistent rash at that time, and my skin was so itchy that I knew I just had to stick with it. And, I would cheat every once in a while and maybe eat a little bit of fruit or some nuts or like charcuterie type of stuff. But I did that diet for about 6 months, and I've never felt better, honestly. I've never felt better in my life. As far as like brain fog, my meditations were more clear. I was less, I didn't have to deal with any kind of anxiety or depression, or I just had very clear, focused attention, lots and lots of energy. My skin was glowing and shiny. My hair's healthy, just like benefits upon benefits upon benefits. And so I kind of weaned off of that diet after 6 months and went more, back. I really love corn. I love corn and I love sugar. And so I went back to more like chips and queso. Here in Texas, it's like tacos and chips and queso. Man, I could eat that every night. And I will. I will sometimes. But it's not the best. It's really just not the best for me. So here recently, in the past few months, I can't say that every day it's been consistent, but after doing about a year of chips and queso and tacos, I have a rash again, and it's persistent, like angry inflammation that's itchy, and I can tell if I eat ice cream, it flares up and it's itchy and it's angry, and I know exactly what it's from because I'm paying attention. And so I've become more strict, And I'm not doing just all meat right now, but I am doing, I guess, what people would consider to be more of a carnivore diet. So eating only stuff that comes from animals. So beef, chicken. I had like a little piece of salmon this morning. Salmon's really good because it's so fatty. That wild caught oily cold fish like salmon. Let's see. I eat raw beef liver like a couple of times a week. I'll do that just for the organ meat. And this is really coming from a post that I made on the wild boar hearts that I cooked yesterday and ate. And so I incorporate organ meat as often as possible. I really like to wrap chicken livers in bacon and put those in the oven until the bacon gets crispy and eat that, because it's just a quick little snack that includes organ meat. And organ meat is really good for you. It has so many vitamins and minerals in organ meat. So it's really important if you're eating like a carnivore diet or an all meat diet to really incorporate that organ meat. Even if you don't like it, it's just like, just get through it. You don't have to eat a ton of it, just like an ounce, and butter and sour cream. Man, sour cream tastes like ice cream to me right now. And so if I feel like I'm craving sugar, or I want something that's gonna feel like a dessert to me, then I'll eat a couple spoonfuls of sour cream. And I guess that's been my biggest challenge with this diet. Oh, and cheese, it's like a dessert too. You can hear the guinea hens. One of my greatest challenges has been being able to consume enough fat. And so eating like pieces of butter and spoonfuls of ghee and sour cream, it has a lot of fat in it. Let's see, duck fat, bacon grease, cooking in those. And then I love also to just make a really good stock, like a chicken stock. I posted a recipe of that on my blog. So boiling a whole chicken for 2 hours and then pouring off the liquid and drinking that as a stock it makes me feel really good and warm inside, and it helps my skin to be really glowing. So when my skin looks really dull, because I studied skincare, it's like back in 2004, but I know how to take care of my skin. Not that I always do, but when stuff starts to show up on my skin, I know that it's like really kind of deep-seated inside of me when it starts to show up on my face. And so paying attention to that, I just know, sometimes I'm like, oh, whatever, but I know that when my skin isn't glowing and looking really healthy, then I need to switch up my diet. Now, do I always do that? No, but I'm doing that right now. So the good thing about making this video is that I feel like it will keep me motivated, to keep going, because I kind of have some support out there with you guys. And another thing with the animals, I keep thinking, 2020 was last year. So in 2019, I was really looking at, I was a vegetarian then, and more towards the vegan side of things, actually, because of the faith of my religion. And so I was really conflicted over how could I start eating meat again in a way that felt the most ethical to me. And so that's where we already had goats, and we have dairy goats, so we don't raise meat goats, but we had the goats, and I'm looking over at the goats because they're right over there. And we were thinking about getting chickens, and I was thinking, if I'm going to start eating meat again, because I know that it makes me feel the most vital, and I know that it's really good for me, and I know that eating meat has made me feel the best that I've ever felt in my life. And that's a big deal. Like, physically, it makes me feel the best that I've ever felt in my entire life. And so I can't discount that. I can't push it over there and not look at it, because it's important. So I want to feel vital, and I want to feel the prana of my food. Does that mean that I have to be a vegan? Does that mean I have to be a vegetarian? No, it doesn't. And that was a hard switch for me to make in my mind, honestly, because a lot of what I study says be a vegetarian. A lot of the way that I live as far as my faith says sometimes be a vegetarian, you know? And so I knew that I had to be able to seriously sit with my own decisions and be able to reconcile that within myself in order to just live my life in a way that I feel is full of integrity, in a way that I feel is ethical. And that's the most important. Like, we all have to do what's best for us, right? We have to do what's best for you. That's important. So this is what's best for me. And raising animals and giving them the very best life. Like, I feel like our goats have the very best goat life that they could have. Like, they're living a good life and they're eating good food and they're able to get out and forage. They can play. They're out in the sun. They're not cooped up somewhere, you know? And I was talking to a friend just recently who also has goats, and we just have some baby goats that were born here on the farm. And because we raise dairy goats, we don't keep the males. We have one castrated male that's here that's kind of like a companion for the does when they're pregnant, and he's awesome. But the babies, we could sell them, which I find that baby bucks are hard to sell because most people want does because people want more babies or they want milk. And so the bucks you would sell for a lower price. And then there's no guarantee that if I sell a buckling that he's going to go off and live his best goat life. You know, I don't know the people that I'm selling him to, and although we might speak with them and try to find out what their views are and everything, I don't know what happens to the baby goats when they leave here, you know. And last year we sold 3 bucks to some good people, but you know, I haven't heard about them really, I mean, in months and months and months, not like we don't keep in contact. So the 2 bucks that are here, the intention is to castrate them, or it's called banding, where, and those you goat people will know what I'm talking about, or livestock people, so that they don't stay intact because they're not going to be for breeding. And then after a year, the plan is to harvest them, just the boys, and then we'll keep the little girl and add her to the other does that we have here for breeding and for milking. And that's controversial, you know. And my friend was saying, you know, I wonder how your audience is going to receive that information. And, you know, I'm just going to give it to you straight. I'm going to give it to you like this, because this is what it is. And, you know, I may lose some followers for it, but I feel that, you know, you homesteaders out there and you people who are geared towards eating wild food and hunting and living off the land, I feel like there's support in those areas. And so I'm just going to tell you exactly how it's going on here. And we don't all have to agree. Whoever said we were living in a world like that, there's going to be times when we just don't agree. And that's okay. So, and you know, sometimes we do harvest the chickens. We mainly have the chickens here for eggs because eggs are, you know, a really great source of protein, and I think eggs are pretty fatty too. But you know, eggs, they have a long list of vitamins and minerals in them too, especially when they're pasture raised eggs. So our chickens are living a really good life. And I try to eat as much wild meat as possible as well, because it's just like that idea of being more in touch with your terroir, which is a great word that I don't think I'm saying right in French, but being close to the land and being connected to the place. And that's where wild meat really comes in. Animals that are eating, you know, the juniper and munching on milky oats and stuff like that. It's just like being closer to the land is important as well. And teaching my children that you can live off the land and you can hunt your food and you can raise animals and you can love those animals and you can also harvest them sometimes and sustain yourself. So I think that the circle of life is definitely alive out here. And, you know, I guess some of the question could be like, how do you treat your animals? And, you know, we love these animals. We love these animals, and we're with them every day, and we're raising them from babies, and we're playing with them, we're petting them, and we're taking care of them. We are in service to these animals completely. And it's hard. You know, we're not just out here killing everything. And when you do harvest one of your animals that you've raised, it's hard to do, but it's also sacred. And we honor their life, and we honor the entire process as a ceremony that we do as a family. So that's just, this video is going to be short. It just hit 20 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up. And if you have any questions, please leave questions below, leave comments below. Please be kind. And yeah, let me know if you want to see more about this kind of stuff, because I do post some of this stuff sometimes, but some of it I just don't, just probably because I don't have time, but also because I haven't sat down and really made a video like this to kind of lay a foundation before we move on. So I definitely do want to hear your thoughts on it. And if you want to know what I had for breakfast, I had a damn good breakfast. So for breakfast, I had a little patty, like a ground beef patty, like 80-20, 20% fat ground beef, and some leftover wild caught salmon, a couple of fresh scrambled eggs that I scrambled in butter with a little bit of salt. They were really good. A couple spoonfuls of sour cream, 3 slices of bacon, because bacon's so good and crispy. I think that's all I had for breakfast, and that'll last me. That's another thing about eating meat, is that, or eating just meat, I guess, or like things that come from animals, is that I find that when I can get enough fat in, especially, I'm satiated and I'm satisfied, and I don't have all these cravings, and I don't need to snack all throughout the day, and I eat less. So that's the thing, like people have said to me, oh, don't you think that's that impact of that on the environment, everybody eating a bunch of meat? But it's not really like that. I don't eat a ton of meat every day. I eat less now than I was when I was eating bags of chips and queso. So yeah, anyway, that's what I had for breakfast, and I probably won't eat again until, sometimes I eat dinner early, so I eat probably around 5 or 6. I'll eat again, and then I'll be done for the day. And I drink lots of sparkling water because it tastes really good, and it helps if I'm like craving something. I'll drink some sparkling water, and that'll knock it out. All right, so I'm kind of excited for what this is serving as a catalyst for new conversations, because I think that there is some support out there. And yeah, I'm not saying that this is what you should do. I'm not saying that this is the best thing for you. I'm just saying that this is the best thing for me. And so if you like this video, click on like. If you want to see more, subscribe and click on notifications, all the things that you do on YouTube, and definitely give me some feedback. Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining me here. I will talk to you all later. Namaste.